everybody. I'm Dr. Christy Taylor, founder of Work Solutions LLC and Work Global News Magazine. And I am so excited to bring you another edition of our Changemaker series. And today we're featuring Natalie Solomon, who's also going to be a speaker for our Prescription for Career Success Summit. Now, Natalie is a public health analyst, dynamic speaker, and founder of Meraki Life Style, a wellness platform empowering women through self-care, resilience, and intentional living. Natalie blends her academic expertise with over a decade of personal experience managing chronic health challenges, including endometriosis and a brain tumor. And through her Secure Your Oxygen Mask First, which is a video that I found and loved, invited her to be part of this platform. This is her the Secure Your Oxygen Mask First philosophy. She equips women with tools to prioritize wellness and purpose. Natalie, I was just so impressed by that video, and I'm really just so excited to have you on as one of our change makers. And so let me just hand it over to you to introduce yourself, and then we're going to jump right into today's interview.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Taylor, for having me. I was very excited to be part of this whole platform and experience. And like you said, I am a public health analyst, public health practitioner, also a business owner with a lifestyle platform that I decided to combine the elements of me being in public health for over 20 years, as well as the public health or the healthcare challenges that I've dealt with for just as long, 20 some years of my life, and really thinking about how have I, transversed all of these things through the years and building my resilience, building just my just understanding how to have that zen while I'm going through what I'm going through, and ultimately securing my oxygen mask first and helping others to understand to do that so that you can kind of continue to traipse along with all the challenges that you come into encounter with.
Well, we can really just jump right in with you sharing your personal journey because, as you mentioned, it's been both inspiring and challenging, right?
Yes.
And so let's just talk about, what was that pivotal moment in your life that led you to create Meraki Life Style?
Well, I would say so. For over 20 plus years, I've dealt with reproductive challenges with stage 4 endometriosis. And for those that don't know what that is when your body, normally for women, that you shed during your cycle, decides to go outside of your uterus, and it causes all of your internal organs to attach to itself. And it can be extremely painful. I had stage 4, which is the most severe, and it causes 1 in 10 women have it. It takes about 7 to 10 years to diagnose, and it's usually the number one reason why women are infertile. And because of a lot of people don't necessarily believe that you have it, they're like, oh, you just have cramps. It leads to other challenges with your life. I've had about 14 different surgeries that have all been complicated. 5 of them were with endo, but have led to other healthcare issues. So there was a point in my life when I had endo. I said, I guess maybe the 5th surgery, and I had a traumatic hysterectomy that was botched. And unfortunately, it caused me to have some other issues with my ureter and a couple bouts with sepsis. I almost died 3 times. So I had to sit down and be quiet, basically. And having to go through all this, I'm like, how am I going to keep going? And then also during this time, I found out I had a brain tumor. So imagine that you're dealing with the other reproductive health challenges, and then on top of that, you got a brain tumor, but you kind of have to be still. But to even think about how do you continue to do that, I had to figure out where can I have a place to sit, cry, relax, reinvent myself. And that's kind of how I came up with the Meraki Life and Style component. I have a she shed in my house, and it's my meditation room. And I was doing workshops for my girlfriends on meditation, vision boarding, vision journaling. And basically, I would go to this room and pray. And I took those ideas, and in each wall has its own vision board. And one wall is my sorority stuff. One wall is the name of my company. One is the area where I draw and paint. And then I have a prayer altar. And my girlfriend of mine came into my room, and she's like, girl, people will pay you for this. And I was like, what? She's like, yes. She's like, and I always like to decorate and do events. So I thought about it. And I said, well, maybe I can combine the two. I'm already in public health, and I'm already doing my own wellness and trying to center myself. But I had to create this space for myself. And that's kind of where the idea came from. How can I help women create sacred spaces for themselves that are going through traumatic situations, be it healthcare or otherwise, where they can relax, relate, and release? And that's kind of how that started.
Again, I would have to tell you offline because we share very much a similar story, and it's the
Mhm.
root of some of the advocacy work that I do, even in healthcare today.
Mhm.
Now, one of the reasons why I reached out to you because I saw your video about securing your oxygen mask first, and I want to talk a little bit about that. What does that
Yeah.
really mean to you personally? You've already shared your story, and so when you talk about securing your oxygen mask first, what does that really mean, and how do you use that to encourage women to
Yeah.
embrace that in their daily lifestyle?
I would say there was a time when I used to, when I figured out that when I was having challenges with my reproductive health, what have you, I became a workaholic and I was working like 90 hours a week.
Mm,
Some craziness that I would never recommend to anybody. And it got to the point where woke up one day, drove myself to the hospital. And I was like, I can't keep working like this,
mhm,
having chest pains. And in that moment, I got a call for another job, which actually is a job I currently have had for the past couple of years, 10 years. And in that moment, the lady was like, well, when can you come in? And I said, well, I'm in the ER right now. So maybe tomorrow. And she was like, ma'am, what? She's like, ma'am, I need you to focus on yourself. And then she's like, we won't give the job away, but focus on what you need to do to take care of yourself and then we'll call us back. And it was in that moment that like spark started for me that I said, Natalie, I can't keep going like this. If I do not take care of myself, I'm in the hospital, I'm working myself to death. And for what is my return on my investment? This is insane. And the amount of times I've been in the hospital over the past 5 years, and the time, some of it was during COVID, and I'm sitting in the room by myself and being in the hospital room and thinking that, you're hearing the doctors talk and they're like, they don't know if you're going to die, and that happened to me multiple times where I've been on death's door, realizing nothing else matters if I don't have my health. All the different plans that I had for myself, doesn't matter. All the things that I wanted to do for anybody else and give of myself and be a part of this organization or volunteer, it doesn't matter if my health is not intact, which meant I had to do that and really think about putting on my own oxygen mask and not being selfish. It's strategic. It's a necessity for me to be able to thrive and do what I want to do, and then everybody else can come after, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot, just like when you're on the airplane, you got to put that thing on first before you help anybody else. Because if you pass out, you can't help anybody else, let alone yourself. And that really was jarring to me. And I said, I'm a giver. I'm a giver. I'm an empath and I want to help. I said, I can't do that anymore because it's to my own detriment. And I really had to say, this securing your oxygen mask first is about your own survival, and it is not selfish for you to be able to show up like you want to in the world and that you're in, to make the impact that you want. You really have to adopt that mindset, or else you're going to be useless.
Now you have really taken your personal experiences and pivoted to be able to help women on a broader scale. So when it comes to as we as women, some of the biggest barriers we face in trying to really prioritize our own wellness. What are your thoughts on why this occurs? What are some of the barriers that we face, and how your
Mm.
company really works to help women overcome those obstacles?
I would say for us women, the barriers, I see are guilt,
Mm-hmm.
societal expectations, and lack of access to supportive spaces. And a lot of those expectations that are placed upon us, we don't necessarily buck against because we feel like we should be doing them, because that's just something that society has trained us with. And then we feel guilty even if we take time off for ourselves, even if we just think, well, I'm supposed to be doing that. I want to be, if in this case, a strong Black woman or a strong woman, and that's what we're supposed to do. We hold the family together. And then thinking of, well, I don't want to appear weak to anybody. I don't want to talk about it. So then I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have a space where I can be safe and just let my hair down, or just, when you're in the situation, when you come home and you take all your clothes off, you're like, oh, this is the best. But where you can just be safe. And because those environments are not at a premium, we
Mm,
just kind of get in line and just kind of trudge along, expecting it to somehow get some relief, but we
yeah.
know no one's coming to save us. But we keeping on because that's what we're expected to do, and that's what we put on ourselves. And then if we really ask each other, girl, how you doing? I mean, we may give the, oh girl, I'm good,
Yep.
just hanging in there. I'm
I
good.
want to tell everybody my business type of situation,
That
right?
part too, the not telling it. And I think that is a source also that is a pain point
Yeah.
where we're like, well, I'm not going to tell anybody my business. I don't want people in my business. But you know what? People sometimes need to be in your business because people need to share about what's going on to feel like you're being seen and heard. So many times we know that we're not seen, and we definitely do not feel heard, and we suffer in silence. And the depression that comes with that, the self-hate, and then you not taking care of yourself. And taking self-care is not just putting some cucumber slices on your eyeballs.
Yes, please touch on that because
Please.
I wanted to just jump in and ask a question to you based on something that you said. Right, I've just talked to so many women, and women we play all of these roles: your friend, your mother, your
Yeah.
spouse, your best friend. All of these different roles that you play in everyday life. With
Mm-hmm.
you're like a piece of a puzzle, right? So
Yes.
you're a piece of a puzzle, and you touched a little bit on guilt, right?
Yeah.
Can you expound on that and related to all of these different dynamics that we play, these different many roles, these different puzzle pieces that we play as women, right? And how
Yeah.
that impacts us.
I think the guilt comes from just, growing up where it's like, well, if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it doesn't get done, then you're like, okay, I'm stunting growth in whatever area that may be. So you keep thinking, well, if this doesn't get done, then this person is going to be let down, or that job isn't going to get done, or I'm not going to be able to help this person. And then what's that going to look like on me? Because it's going to make me look weak, that I
Yeah,
can't hold myself together, that I'm not the person that I propose, purport to be, that I'm like out there doing my thing. Like, yeah, girl, you got it. No, no, no. How about I don't got it and I'm not okay? And I need to
exactly.
sit here and be by myself and sit with my coffee or my tea in the corner and cry. And that's okay. I think the guilt also comes from not wanting to be not okay and feeling some sort of way that I'm not okay with not being okay. And it's because I can't let anybody see that part of me, because we feel so much pressure for so many other things, that we're supposed to be a mom, a wife, a girlfriend, the cook, the doctor, the 6 million different jobs all at once. And if we don't handle that sometimes, it speaks to our insecurities, that I'm not enough, because society always tells us that we are not enough just as women, by virtue of just being a woman. And then the fact that if I can't step up to all of those things, I'm not living up to the expectation, then I must not be doing something right. I must be doing something wrong for myself. I'm not fulfilling my purpose. I'm not holding up my end of the bargain. When nobody has really asked us to do that, we just step into those roles and we absorb those things. And when we don't fulfill that, then we kind of put that guilt on ourselves.
Right. We
And then
take
it's
the
a
role
cycle.
for the
We
whole
take,
world. Right.
yeah,
You take the burden of the whole world. Now you mentioned just even in the beginning here, you talked about as part of securing your own oxygen mask, you talked about you got a she shed, and all I can think about is that little commercial with the she shed, right? You talk about the importance of creating sacred spaces for
yes.
self-care and reflection. I want you to elaborate on this. I'm the founder of the Safe Space, and
Mhm.
I'll just make a little point here. I started the Strategic Alliance for African American Female Entrepreneurs here in DC, and shorted it as the Safe Space is the acronym, right? And that really was supposed to be a space where we come in to build up Black women and focus on businesses, right? But
Right.
somehow it has become a space where I'm bringing in speakers like yourself and other women who are helping us to heal. And I
Yes.
guess that just goes to the bigger piece of, right, when spaces are created out of necessity. Um, and so I just want you to touch on that, because yes, you have a she shed, but your business itself is a she shed, because you're taking all these women under your wing and mentoring, because before we can build all of this greatness, because again, I
Yes.
had one intent of like, okay, I'm going to bring in all these business coaches and people who want to speak, but it really became a space and place for us to heal. And I feel like that's the work that you're doing through your business, right?
Mhm.
Helping women to heal of all experiences. But I want you to talk a little bit about that safe space, that environment.
Yeah, and when it's funny that you said that about how your business, how your safe space transformed into something else, because that happened when I was doing a speaker series at my job. It was a 12-month speaker series for an employee resource group at work, and the one day I said, you know what, we're going to do a healthcare panel and talk about what each of us experienced being in the healthcare field. Took a month off, came back, and I said, before I go into the series, I'm just going to say, let's take a break. That was the name of the session. Let's just take a break and find out what these women want to talk about. And before you know it, that space turned into what you just said
Mm-hmm.
about the healing space. And it went from one time a week, one time a month to every week. And these women came when we talked about healing, we talked about breath work. We just said when they came there to the session, they were like, so do we have to do anything? Or could we just sit here and be quiet and listen to some lo-fi music? And I said, this is your space. And realizing the unspoken silence of just being in a space
Yep.
was so healing to some of those women. Some women talked about what was going on with them and how they were dealing with what was going on in the world. Some
Mm-hmm.
talked about their kids, some talked about their marriages or their divorces or their childcare situations. And one thing that I like to say as far as a sacred space, it's a two-pronged thing. There's a sacred space that's a physical community that you can join and that you can get involved in with other women just to be. But then you also have to look at your own personal body and mind as your own sacred space. That is your sacred, that is your first sacred space, is you. How do you take care of this space within you so that you can get to that point where you can participate in the sacred space with others? And I think sometimes that space that I hope to create and help to create allows that reflection time that we often don't get, to realize that you are your first sacred space. But you have to feel safe enough to peel back the layers to understand that you are your first sacred space, to understand what you need to nurture and create and grow that other sacred space in the company of other women, which is usually sometimes how that happens, because you feel vulnerable enough to be like, oh, I see that person in you, or see that person in myself, and understand that I have needs, and that it's okay to just be in that space, and that is sacred. That time is sacred for you. That time is just what you need to be off, because we don't always need to be on, because if we're on all the time, there's no way that we can sit and be reflective. You need that quiet time, you need that dark time just to be with yourself. And that sometimes has to be edged along and helped along. And I really hope that when I create these spaces for women, that that is part of the journey that we take, the journey to find your own sacred space, and then find your own space within that sacred space that we create with other women.
I feel like we could really just jump into the next question, because I feel like most of what I asked you, and I probably should have asked you this question first, but I was just so intrigued, about the stuff, the information you've been sharing.
Mm-hmm.
You speak a lot on community, and you are out here creating those sacred spaces, like the Meraki Empowerment Collective,
Mm-hmm.
Meraki Sacred Spaces, right? So
Yes.
you talk a lot about that. Just go ahead and just jump right into the business component itself in terms of what you're doing. I feel like you just explained it to
Right.
us,
It's because
right?
it's two prong. It's two prong because when I created the Meraki Life and Style, the life, it's a lifestyle company, but the life component is where I talk about reproductive health, mental health, wellness, and how do you develop those tools, and giving you practical application within the Meraki Empowerment Collective. That's the life part, right?
Mhm.
And that's where you figure out the application of what are the skill sets that I need to develop during that time. And then the Meraki Sacred Spaces is what is the physical manifestation of that for you? Because now I have the tools to use when I want to go sit in my sacred space. Because you're going to sit in your space, and your space doesn't actually have to be a room. It could be it could be a shoebox of different elements that represent things that are sacred to you, that you go off in a corner and you use those things to help you nurture that part of your life. It could be a bathroom, it could be your car, but it's about what are some elements that give you peace and give you some time of reflection. And with the style component, that's where, I did a room for someone else just a couple weeks ago. They had a bedroom that they wanted in a Zen format,
Mhm.
and they had a bunch of things like cluttered everywhere. And I was like, yeah, this is not giving me good feng shui right now. I said, we need to move some stuff. We need to clear this space. We need to clear the energy. And honestly, we just literally moved some things around, got some clutter out the way, and it changed the whole vibe of the room for her. And she was like, she called me the next day. She's like, I slept in there last night and it was great. And all we did was move some little things out of our space. And sometimes it comes down to that, changing that certain, like if you have your desk and it's cluttered, you organize chaos and organized confusion is a thing, but sometimes you just need to pick some stuff up and move it out the way, because it's not giving you that free reign to take in the energy that you need to just be like, this is great. So I look to combine those two and give you those tools and strategies that you can use when you find that sacred space. So you can sit down and meditate on those things and figure out, well, what's going to work for me to help me continue creating these sacred times for myself.
Yeah, you have definitely a long-term vision and strategy and goals for where you're going to take this. And I mean,
Yeah.
the services that you offer are just so needed in terms of how you support women in creating those sacred spaces. And I love the fact that you have just really given, like, okay, it's not just, it can be physical, mental, like it's about, and also having that support. Um, Listen, we're coming up on the end of this interview, but I
Yeah.
still got a couple more questions I want to ask you, right? So you're going to be a speaker at our Prescription for Career Success Summit in like 30 seconds or less, right? I just want you to touch briefly. Don't tell them everything, but what are
Yeah.
you going to be talking about? What is your presentation focusing on with all of this great stuff that you've shared with us?
Thank you. But I'm really looking to see, where in your career are you making sure you're equipped to
Mm.
handle what comes into your purview? So, yes, you're on your career path, but what are you doing on your end to prepare to secure your oxygen mask first? To make sure that you're taking the strategies that I'm going to go over about focusing on your wellness, your mindset, and how you are physically preparing yourself to take on all of these things that you need to show up for your business. What does that look like? And it's not just cucumber slices. It's not just hanging out at the spa. It's saying no to certain projects that you can't take everything on because you're not going to do well. Quantity does not mean quality. You want to have a quality product for your business. You want to make sure you're delivering what you can and making sure that you're connecting with your clients, whatever that may look like. But you have to make sure that you yourself is good first.
Listen, Natalie, this has really been a fantastic interview, and I always like to ask guests to please share a piece of advice. So, for women, what advice do you have for women who are watching today, or whatever they're watching this tape, right? Who are
Mhm.
struggling to balance their personal and professional lives? What is one piece of practical advice? Now, she's not gonna give y'all everything, because
I
what you need
can't.
to
I
do is come
can't.
to the summit or sign up for one of her coaching programs. Okay, all right, or reach out to
Yes.
her. But
Mhm.
what is one piece of advice that you would give to
I
anyone?
would say for every woman, just understand that you deserve and you're worthy of care for yourself. You're deserving of rest. It's okay to say no. And you're completely capable of creating the life you want as long as you take those things into play. Your life matters, and it's not about doing it all at all. It's just taking those little things and little increments and being intentional with those little pieces of your life. But always remember you're deserving of rest, you're deserving of care, and it's okay to say no
Love that.
and be okay with that.
Natalie, where can people find you? Of course, we're going to put all of your information and your coupon code for the event and all of that good stuff in the description. But where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Everything for me is NatalieA.Solomon.com. You can
No, that's
find
it.
me there. That will have the links to my speaking platform. It'll link you to my Meraki Empowerment Collective, where you can find my coaching programs. And it will also lead you to my Meraki Sacred Spaces website, where you can see some of the work that I've done.
This has really been a fantastic interview. You've shared so much tidbits and wisdom, and we are so excited to not only just to feature you as a change maker, Natalie, but to continue collaborating with you on many different events, as well as the Prescription for Success Summit. Thank you guys for tuning in today. This has really been a delight, and we look forward to the summit and everything to come. Thank you.
Thank you.